Most Christians know the broad story of the Gospels, but very few have read them closely. The details, that is, the specific words, the objects, the time markers, are where the text does its deepest theological work, and most of us read straight past them. Today we examine 7 of them. Each one is textually grounded, and each carries a meaning the original audience would have caught immediately. 7 details. Let's work through them one by one. Number 1. The veil. When Jesus died, the temple veil was torn. Matthew, Mark, and Luke each record it, and each one includes the same phrase most readers absorb without paying close attention: torn from top to bottom. The veil in question was the inner curtain, the paroquet, that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies. The Mishnah records that this curtain was a handbreadth thick and required hundreds of priests to handle. It was not a decorative fabric. It was a structural boundary marking where God's full presence dwelled and where sinful humanity could not go. Only the high priest passed through it, once a year on Yom Kippur, with blood, with prescribed ritual, and no certainty he would walk back out. When Jesus died, God tore it, but with a specific detail, from top to bottom. This means the action began from above, not from below. If it had torn from the bottom up, it could read as humanity forcing access to God through religious effort. But this tore from the top, which means God opened it by himself. That single directional detail encodes the logic of the new covenant. Access to God is not earned from below, it is granted from above. Hebrews 10:19 draws the line of application directly. Because of Jesus, we now have confident access to the most holy place. The direction of the tear is the theology. Number 2. The charcoal fire. Peter denied Jesus beside a charcoal fire. The Greek word John uses is anthrakia. That word appears only twice in John's entire Gospel, chapter 18 and chapter 21. In chapter 18, servants and officers have lit a charcoal fire in the courtyard of the high priest. It is cold. Peter stands with them, warming himself. 3 times he is pressed about his connection to Jesus. 3 times he denies it. The rooster crows. Then in chapter 21, the disciples are fishing on the Sea of Tiberias after the resurrection. Jesus appears on the shore. He tells them where to cast. The net fills, and they come ashore. And there, waiting on the beach, is a charcoal fire, with fish on it and bread. John uses anthrakia nowhere else. He used it only twice in the Gospel, and both times with Peter standing beside the fire. That is deliberate. Jesus does not meet Peter at a neutral location. He brings him back to a fire. The same sensory environment, the smell, the warmth, the scene. And there he asks 3 questions. Do you love me? 3 times. 1 question for each previous denial. Jesus returns Peter to the precise coordinates of his failure, not to shame him, but to rebuild him at the same point where he fell. The 3 denials are answered by 3 declarations. The wound is healed at the wound site. That is grace operating with surgical precision. Number 3, the hours. The Gospels specify that darkness covered the land from the 6th hour to the 9th hour. That is, noon to 3 in the afternoon, and that Jesus died around the 9th hour. But why record the specific hours? The reason is that the 9th hour was the time of the Tamid, the daily whole burnt offering in the temple. Every day, a lamb was sacrificed at the appointed morning and evening hours. Jewish historian Josephus confirms the evening Tamid fell at the 9th hour, that is, mid-afternoon. So, at the precise hour Israel's priests were offering the daily sacrificial lamb in Jerusalem, Jesus died on the cross outside its walls. Paul makes the connection explicit in 1 Corinthians 5:7. Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. The Gospel writers are making the same point through time. Every lamb placed on every altar across Israel's history was a forward reference, a scheduled promise. The 9th hour on that Friday is when the promise arrived. Thus, the cross was not chaos that God then repaired. It was fulfillment, arriving on schedule. Number 4, the folded face cloth. When Peter and John enter the empty tomb, they find the linen burial wrappings, the othonia, lying flat, apparently collapsed where the body had been. But John records one additional specific detail: the sudarion, which is the face cloth, was not with the other wrappings. It was folded and placed separately in its own spot. This matters evidentially. Grave robbers do not fold clothes. A panicked exit does not produce deliberate arrangement. The orthonia would have been tightly wound around the body. Unwrapping them would have been quite a process. Yet the face cloth of Jesus was found neatly separated and placed aside. John records that when he saw this, he believed. The state of the tomb was itself testimony. Death did not rush Jesus, confuse him, or force him out. He rose, he arranged, he left. Even in resurrection, there is unhurried intention. That is the serenity you would expect from the one who defeated death. Number 5. The stone rolled away. The stone was not rolled away so Jesus could get out. After the resurrection, Jesus appears to his disciples in a locked room, twice. John 20:19 and 20:26. He does not require open doors. The risen body that passed through locked rooms did not need a stone removed. Matthew records that an angel rolled the stone away before the women arrived. Mark records that as the women walked to the tomb, they were asking each other, "Who will roll the stone away for us?" When they arrived, it was already done. The stone was moved for witnesses, not for Jesus. It was removed so that Mary Magdalene could reach the tomb, so that Peter and John could run inside and examine the evidence, so that real people could inspect the scene and report what they saw as eyewitnesses rather than rumor. God did not raise Jesus quietly and leave the world guessing. He opened the tomb and issued a public invitation to investigate. The stone is an evidentiary detail, not a logistical one. Number 6. No room in the guest room. Luke 2:7 says there was no room for Mary and Joseph in what most translations call the inn. But Luke uses the Greek word kataluma, not pandochion, which is the standard Greek term for a commercial lodging house. Luke uses pandochion himself in Luke 10:34 in the parable of the Good Samaritan. This shows he knew both words and chose differently here. Kataluma means a guest room or lodging space within a household. Luke uses it again in Luke 22:11 for the upper room where Jesus celebrates the Last Supper with his disciples. Joseph was returning to his ancestral town. He would have sought family. But the family guest room was already full. So Jesus was born in the lower level of a household where animals were sheltered and laid in the manger there. But the detail carries a wider weight in Luke's gospel. No room in the guest room. No room from Herod, who immediately sought to kill him. No room from the religious establishment, who rejected his authority and handed him to Rome. No room in Jerusalem, which Jesus would later weep over. The world he entered had no prepared space for him. And that pattern still poses a direct question, not about ancient Bethlehem, but about us right now. Number 7. The manger. A manger, phatne in Greek, is a feeding trough. It is a stone or wooden container where animals ate. Not a cradle, not a bed, a feeding station. So, Jesus was laid in a feeding trough on the first night of his life. In John 6:35, Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger." He repeats it in verse 48. In John 6:51, he adds, "I am the living bread that came down from heaven." The one who identifies himself as the bread that comes down from heaven was placed on his first night, where bread and grain are stored for feeding. At the Last Supper, he takes bread, breaks it, and says, "This is my body given for you." The feeding trough in Bethlehem points directly to the table in Jerusalem. Both scenes are about the same thing: provision, given in person by Jesus from his own body. The manger is not sentimental Christmas decor. It is a declaration made before Jesus ever spoke. He came as the one who feeds what is hollow in us. And from his first night on earth, the detail was already saying so. In conclusion, let's recap the 7 details. 1. The veil torn top to bottom. God opens access from above, not from below. 2. The charcoal fire. Jesus restores Peter at the exact site and with the exact structure of his denial. 3. The 6th to 9th hour. The cross lands precisely at the hour of Israel's daily sacrifice. 4. The folded face cloth. The tomb was calm and ordered, not panicked or rushed. 5. The rolled away stone, moved for witnesses to enter and examine, not for Jesus to exit. 6. The guest room, the world's pattern of rejection, and a question that does not stay in Bethlehem. 7. The manger, the bread of life placed in a feeding trough on the first night of his life. None of these are decorative, none are accidental. The gospel writers were theologically literate people, writing with precision, for audiences trained to notice exactly these kinds of details. The Gospels are not loosely assembled stories. They are precision documents about the most consequential person in recorded history. So read them slowly. Attend to the specific words. Notice the objects, the time markers, the exact vocabulary. Every detail is there because someone decided it should be there, and that someone knew exactly what they were doing. If this kind of closed, textually grounded reading is useful to you, subscribe. There is more of this coming. Share it with someone who wants to go deeper than the surface of the text. Thanks for watching.